Hello and welcome to Sim.PC in 3, 2, 1, go! Roll the intro. Wow, it's at days like these I hope that I would have more of a punchline intro, yeah? But I don't have it, right? And I guess that the guy who goes like woo is good enough. Well, not that he actually says oh, but that's probably cultural appropriate anyway. Well, I would like to start this thing about taking a bit of a joke. So politics, am I right, people? No, okay, not there yet. Okay, what I would actually like to say is that sorry for yesterday's low vibe and low key video. There were some reasons to be explained to why I was a bit low key and others that were not. And simultaneously as all of the bad things and the stressful things were happening yesterday's and kind of the topics that I dealt with on top of all of that, of all of those things, not to ridicule any of them, I just saw how I needed a haircut, and I was seriously thinking about and I was thinking about it today as well, that, oh my days, isn't it just sad that someone who has as little hair as me, it's actually showing quite quickly when I haven't cut my hair, which is kind of piece of shit. Anyway, yeah. But politics, we're moving straight into it because it is so much o'clock that it is 21:06 because we're so late. So I thought, you know, why not? Let's get straight into it. And politics. I think I've said it like 3 or 4 times now, and I imagine, yeah, if I say it enough times, it's going to be funny at one point. Not just because of all of the iffy decisions that the politicians do these days, or how they actually tend to behave. Yet again, just my opinion here, right? But also because, well, isn't repetition funny? Or at least the people who did corporate finance and made the entire course thought that, well, repetition must be the funniest thing in the world. Now, wouldn't it? Yeah, I think it's splendid. I think repetition is the most fun thing ever. I'm doing it all the time at home. I repeat stuff, I repeat stuff, I repeat stuff. So why not let all of our students just repeat the same kind of actions over and over again? Isn't that just the best way of learning? And whilst I will not argue with that, yeah, sure, I've learned some stuff, it's not. No, it's not. So I guess that some people think the repetition is funny. So, politicians, am I right? Still no. Okay. The entire idea why I'm taking up politicians is because, and we're going to spin off another thing that I've been talking about previously as well, it's because we're going to talk about this political correctness. Am I right? Yeah? Because I've been covering the monkey debate between Jordan B. Peterson and Stephen Fry on one side, saying that individualistic approach and, you know, political correctness is the opposite to progress. Or, whilst it's not the opposite, it kind of hinders progress more than it elevates it. And on the other side, we have Michael Dyson and Michelle Goldberg, who are saying, no, actually, political correctness is progress. And I'm coming down somewhere in the middle. Yeah, I can see the benefits of having political correctness while simultaneously saying that, well, is it really that good? I mean, surely the individualistic perspective must be the end goal here, which for some people it isn't, but for some people it is. And obviously it was a debate. I believe that both parties thought that, well, the other party had some valid points, but if I go out and say that, then won't I look stupid? And does that remind you of anyone? Yeah? Does that remind you of anyone in particular, anyone at all? Does that remind you of a context of which you've probably seen at least once in your life? And no, I'm not just talking schoolyard fuss here, right? I'm not just talking about little Johnny and little Timmy having a bit of an argument, right? I'm not just talking about those people who are afraid of giving in to the other party because then all of the other kids will see that they were actually wrong to begin with. And even if they weren't wrong, people are going to think they're wrong because they agree with the opposite side. Now, which grown-ups can we think of that does these exactly the same thing, but they're grown-ups and the things that they're arguing about instead of solving, yeah? It's affecting all of us. And who put them into power to begin with? And we're obviously mates, ladies and gentlemen, talking about politicians. And I'm not going to argue me to be one expert on politics, right? Mainly because I'm not. But there are some things that I deem to be very interesting to talk about. And just to spin off on the thing that I said I talked about previously, first, was that, well, a certain amount of time ago, I was going to say my prostate for some reason. I was at the hospital for undefined reasons. No, I'm actually allergic to air, asthmatic and all of that, yeah? So I was there for that particular reason, and I sparked up kind of conversation with the nurse at the time. I was talking about, the issue of political correctness and how it's kind of affecting society as a whole. Now, she might not have thought that that was the most interesting topic of conversation that she'd been talking about, with anyone that entire day, year, or ever. But I thought it was ludicrously important, right? And I felt passionate from the start to the end. I was in there. I was mixing things up. And she was actually adding the perspective to it, right? Because I was kind of, isn't it kind of bad how people are saying political correctness is kind of shutting down more conversation than it solves. And it's kind of this idea of mentality of being right instead of being, effective. Something that Stephen Fry also mentioned, which might be good. Anyway. But she was putting in the ludicrously immense perspective on that, or in my opinion it was, right? It was, we're talking world-shifting paradigms here, yeah? When she was introducing that, well, we're actually kind of the same in the circle of hospitality. Not hospitality, but in the hospitals, yeah? In the nursing homes, whatever you might have it. People who are kind of health consultants to a certain degree. If I call in and I say, hi, I'm having a bit of a problem with my niece. I want not my niece, not my brother's son or whatever it is, but my actual physical, let's see if we can get it up here, niece. Then I want them to give as straight of an answer as possible so that I can make it better, right? And if I call in, they probably have a journal, right? My medical journal, they have me on file, all the things that they know about me. He's 172 and a half tall, right? I don't know what that is in foot and feet and stuff like that. But let's just say a modest 6.5, yeah? I'm not saying I'm the best mathematician out there, but a fair estimate, yeah? So let's say 6.5, 6'5", because obviously that's true, and they get my weight and so on and so forth, maybe my habits and potential chronological sicknesses and whatever, or things that just sticking with me. And I'm calling in and I'm like, hi, I'm having a bit of a problem with my physical niece it's on my leg. And they were like, well, have you tried to tell him, let him go? And I'm like, ha, hilarious. Now, I am having a bit of a problem with my knee. And they're like, I get it now. And based on my medical journal, they can give me a straight answer. However, what she said, this nurse, was saying that if someone calls in and they are, I'm not saying obesity, even though I just said it, but let's just say above average size, they are having the problem with saying, maybe you should drop a few pounds and that would ease the tension on your knee. Both of them. Because they're having a tough trouble of saying that because they're afraid of making people be offended. And I was like, that's ludicrous. Truly, that cannot be true. You're just messing around with me to be on the same page as I am with my entire paradigm-shifting universal perspective on society, right? Because I'm probably the only one who thought of this. Yeah? No. And she was just saying like, yeah, maybe pretty much. People are kind of saying the same thing. And I hear that we're afraid of hurting people's feelings. Okay, so afraid of hurting people's feelings. We can see how at a professional establishment, people are still considering political correctness above, and this is what's so weird and messed up about it, above, they're prioritizing that above what should be done. And what is the entire point of me taking this up? Because I want to talk about, and you guessed it, politicians. Because as I was saying, you've probably seen these kids on the playground having a bit of a fool around with their arguments. A bit of a back and forth, if you will. However, now you put these people into modern context. People who think that they're, self-appointed self-appointed knights of society whose main goal is to make the country great again. No pun intended with that slogan, but you kind of get what I'm saying. And all countries do have them. And I would also like to argue that the more public a figure is within politics, the worse this issue gets for them. Yet again, not a political expert or anything, just my opinion, perspective, and my view. And wouldn't you argue that my perspective as an uneducated person within the field would be the most relevant one, because I'm the one who don't really know what they're doing, and I have this perception of them, so maybe they should cater to me, who don't know that much about them, so that I agree with them. Yeah? Sounds good? Sounds about right. appeal to the masses, if you were. Utilitarianism in its finest, isn't that just a pre-definition and a precursor to democracy as we know it, when you really think about it? How is the best for the many? Yeah, majority. Anyway, mates, anyway. At least in dictatorship, they screw everybody equally. Not that we're going to go down that route, because I truly believe that democracy is kind of a good thing. He says hedging. Anyway. But kind of the problem that I would like to take up is that when you see people in a political debate, you see one side stating one thing. This is a serious issue. So there are politicians on one side stating a few points. This is our point on the problem. This is truly what we believe. And then you have the other side, who are equally as enthusiastic about their point of view. And they're like, we think that we would like to come to this conclusion another way. Yeah? And they go back and forth. And now what I do as a general listener to this conversation, of which I have had many encounters with, because I like as much, probably more than anybody else, or more than the average person, to look at political debates, because I deem them to be interesting. Where is this country actually going? Maybe we should have a general interest in that. Minor social critique there. Anyway. But what I do seem to be so interesting is that we have two different political parties. Let's just make it easy and say that there are two. Yeah? One pro, one negative of an issue, of a set issue. What I'm having a problem with personally is that it feels like all political parties, hence also all politicians within them, have certain standards that they need to uphold. For instance, let's just say that this party is very individualistic. And the other party is very collectivist, right? They're thinking about the group opportunity around here, and over here we're thinking about the individual in focus. It feels like to me that we can't come to any common consensus and find any common ground in common issues that don't necessarily need to involve individualism versus collectivism to solve, because they're a broader problem and reaches a broader perspective than just what the main issues of these two political parties actually are. However, the politicians on each side are feeling so focused and they're feeling so cornered to try and push their own agenda and push their own main subject all of the goddamn time that they can't really find any common ground. Not that they're not saying exactly the same thing at times, which has happened, but they're still arguing against each other. They're like, I like the color blue, and the other people are saying, I like the color blue. And then they start arguing about that blue is better than blue. This is obviously a simplified, example. But that's kind of how it sounds to me. Yet again, it might be that I'm not, an expert within the field. Sure, fine. And a expert in the terminology that they use, which is my own native language. And one can argue that if you're going to be a politician, you should probably use a language that can reach as many people as possible. So if we do assume that they do that, and I still don't get why they're fighting about something that is bloody obvious to begin with, and as both of them states are obvious to begin with, then why are we even discussing the subject? Why can't we just come to a conclusion? And the reason for that, I think, is because they do so promptly want to be right, both of them. And now we're coming into political correctness in politics. Ha ha ha, I know. There are two issues here. One, since we've already established the mindset of political correctness being more about being right than being effective, we have different people saying, our way of doing things is right. Because we do believe that the general public sees it that way. And we represent that part of the general public. Whilst the other party is saying that, no, this is right. Because this is how we perceive the general public to behave. And this is the part of the general public that we represent. So having two different sides of what political correctness actually is, that they try to convey. And they can't really take the other person's side, because that would be saying that, well, the people that we try to represent here, we're not caring about them anymore, because we thought that you made a valid point. And this is also kind of a problem with politics and so on and so forth, in my opinion, right? That you can have brilliant politicians, I'm saying brilliant, let's put a quotation mark on that, because you can have stubborn politicians that are really good at what they do and really believe in their thing, right? That can come to a conclusion, both of them, that kind of similar. There is a common ground, but they can still not agree that it exists. Because they and this can be because of several reasons. Either because the like the entire party they're in, it says no, we can't agree with them. Or because the politician itself, isn't singular, the individual is saying, no, I don't believe in you, or I don't find this common ground. Or because both the party and the politician says that, well, I actually think you have some valid points there, but we are not representing yourselves, we're representing the general public, of which have, voted for us, so we cannot agree with you, because that's not what we told people we were gonna do before we did something. Yeah, it's kind of crazy now, isn't it? And political correctness, in my opinion, would deem that, well, both a pro and a negative in this time. And this is going to be a bit abstract, because I truly believe that most people will view a topic where people are fighting against why blue is better than blue to be pretty idiotic, right? We can all argue that it is or it isn't the case, but I would say common sense dictates in this case, objectively, that is kind of weird at least, right? And even though weird objective in the same sentence is really wrong, I'm just rolling with it, right? I'm flying, I'm winging it. So we have these people from the general populace, right, who is viewing this situation. Now, political correctness probably should dictate that we should all be agreeing on this, yeah? Because, that would be politically correct to do, because we all think the same here. Why fight when we don't have to? This is my interpretation of political correctness. I can be completely wrong. Simultaneously, we have the people who say that, well, is it really politically correct to have a party saying that they're standing for one thing, agreeing with the party who says they stand for another thing? This makes things really confusing for the general, for the general public, who says that I voted for them, not for them, but they agree with them. Why do they agree with them? Then I could have voted for them to begin with. Or but they're different opinions. How can they agree? But they did say the same thing in this thing. So, and blue is blue. I mean, that's hard to deny. So, why were they really fighting to begin with? Maybe the entire political system is rigged. No, probably not. And this is going to lead us into the final point here, because all of this probably sounds like horseshit up until now. And with all fairness, politics, I mean, it really should do, right? Not necessarily, but unfortunately it kind of does, especially the way that I presented it. So what I think is that politics and political correctness, since it's a bit iffy if it can be applied at all, shouldn't be applied at all. Right? But the problem with this is that in the Monk debates, we're kind of taking up this idea with identity politics, yeah? That people are voting for different parties or going about different subjects in a certain way based on how the political party is built up with different, different individuals who look differently. And if you then take different individuals who look differently, place them in a serious issue where they're supposed to discuss, the color blue, for instance, or whatever politicians really discuss these days, and they discuss it back and forth about this blue color, but they can't really take each other's sides because they have different identity politics, because they're dictated by political correctness that they should be behaving in one way and not in the way that the opponent does, because, well, they have different views on identity politics and they have various different views on, well, the individual to begin with. So what I'm trying to say here, which I'm arguably doing a really bad case for, is that political correctness and politics should not be mixed. I think that politicians should be the ones telling the facts cold and straight to us, even though nobody would vote for that. So that's probably why they don't do that, because people would more likely, right, be happy and unaware of problems than being really aware of problems and just having them shoved in their face all the time, that you need to solve it. Now, what people like is saying now, hey, can't I just not do that and simultaneously not raise the taxes so that those taxes can be used for that? Can't you just find a solution where I'm not affected as an individual, but the collective is increased? No, we can't do that. Well, too bad. I'm gonna vote for someone that says I can, even if it turns out that that's going to be a 4 or 5 or whatever, however long the period is in your country, period of time that people are going to be in power and I'm going to complain about them all the time. I'd rather do that than having the truth sent to me that I need to be part of the solution, because I'd rather not be in that. So where are I going with that bit of rant? Well, probably the entirety of, drop political correctness in politics. Give it to people straight. Don't be afraid to hurt people's feelings, because that's what politics probably should be all about. Opinions clashing against opinions, because that should be represented by the public. But then yet again, can you really say something offensive if you say on behalf of the public? Because that would technically mean that the entire proportion of population that is kind of represented, quote unquote, by you is saying that, which is also wrong. this leads to many misconceptions and problems. Anyway, political correctness shouldn't be in politics. That's my final statement, right? And I would argue that this wasn't one of the best things I've ever argued for. So please join in the discussion below if you thought that you have a different topic or a different idea of this, which I probably will do myself if someone joins in. Have a nice one, mates. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.